Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into SEC Nightly, the nightly show dedicated to the top news and notes from the nation's top conference. As always, I'm your humble host, Brooks Austin. We were a little slow yesterday on the news end, but holy smokes, man, today we got hit with an absolute storm of news. Got a jam-packed show for you guys tonight. Super excited about it. Just got fresh off basketball court. In fact, I may or may not still have my basketball shorts on. We got our butt drug, but I'm still here. That's why it's a little late tonight, 10 o'clock start. But I got a great show for you guys. Put it together. Not necessarily last minute. Was thinking about it all day, putting the outline together, if you will, throughout today, throughout the for you. Just to start, going to give you a kind of a rundown of what we got for you tonight on the show. We got UGA versus Clemson, adding yet another schedule for those guys. They will play 6 times in the next 12 seasons starting next year. NCAA proposing a new transfer rule. We can't let the music drop out on you guys. We got to keep the music while we're getting the intro going. NCAA proposing the same transfer rule we talked about here on SEC Nightly just a couple weeks ago that the Big Ten proposed. That's now going to seemingly go nationwide. So the free immediate eligibility, assuming that you are going to meet some criteria that we'll talk about a little bit later in the show. So you're going to want to stick around for that one. We got Charlie Strong being added on to that Alabama staff after flirting with Florida a little bit, maybe making a return as coordinator down there in Gainesville with the Gators, now going to be on that staff there in Alabama with Nick Saban as the defensive analyst. And we'll probably close tonight's show with the pit boss, Sam Pittman, out there in Arkansas doing some absolute work and some good work. That football team is going to be a lot better this year. So where should we start? That's the big question. Let's go ahead and start by begging you for your support. We just got a like there in on Facebook, it seems, wherever you are, however support, man. Whether it be on podcast, give us a 5-star review. Whether it be on Twitter, man, hit that screen. Throw those hearts up on that Periscope. Get us up those boards. And, of course, Facebook, give us those likes. YouTube, my YouTube channel. You guys that show us love over there, give us a thumbs up. And if you aren't already, go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel over there. Haven't done a video breakdown this week. Been a little bit busy, but I will tease the next one. It's going to be Jalen Carter. I haven't quite finalized who I'm going to compare him to into the NFL. I have a good idea. I just think it's too lofty of a comparison. 15-year-old kid. Not 15-year-old kid, excuse me, an 18-year-old kid coming into college. The NFL player comp I got for him, man, I'll spoil it. It's Aaron Donald. I think he looks a lot like Aaron Donald. And if you want to see me tell you why, if you want me to explain that absolute blasphemous statement of comparing an 18-year-old high school kid to the 2-time defending, maybe 3-time at this point, NFL Defensive Player of the Year, if you want to hear that reasoning or see that reasoning, check out the YouTube channel. I'll have that up before the end of the week. But now let's get right into this, man. Let's hit this transfer rule. As we were talking about earlier, man, we told you about this, kind of prefaced it a little bit a few weeks back when the Big Ten, with a little bit of a wink that this might be coming down the pipe for this NCAA to make this nationwide. Okay, the NCAA made a little bit of a statement here today. I found on SI.com. Shout out to the big folks over there, the mothership, as I like to call them. Quote, the current system is unseen working group members believe it's time to bring our transfer rules more in line with today's college landscape, said working group chair John Steinbrecher, commissioner of the Mid-American Conference. He continued, this concept provides a uniform approach that is understandable, predictable, and objective. Most benefits the students. Nice that he slid that in there last, right? Most importantly, it benefits the students. But here's what it mainly does. It makes guys like Steinbrecher easier. Here's the deal. Here's what it does. It stops some 50-year-old in an office somewhere deciding whether or not Luke Ford has, because he wants to go be closer to his sick grandparents, only to turn right around and provide Tate Martell the ability to sit the bench and play a little slot receiver for Miami, okay? It takes that decision out of those hands, out of the hands of a John Steinbrecher, and puts it into the hands of the players. You have to meet these criteria that we're going to talk about right now, and you get one shot. You get one, oops, I chose the wrong school, and you get to go to a new one. Because how often do we talk about how it's these 18-year-old kids, these 17, sometimes 17, because these guys graduate a little bit early and early enroll, right? 17-year-old kids making life-changing decisions with penalty if they make the wrong one, right? The penalty is you're going to have to sit out one of your 5 years, one of your 4 years of eligibility. You have to sit out and wait it out to get eligibility to be granted the ability to play. Now that's gone. You get one oopsie. One oops, I chose the wrong school. You get to transfer to a new one, assuming you meet this criteria we're going to talk about right here. First, you have to receive a transfer release from the previous school. Okay, so coach has signed to approve you leaving that school. Leave their previous school academically eligible is the second criteria. You can't just leave because I'm not going to be academically eligible this semester. I want to go try to play somewhere else. That's not the rule. You got to stay academically eligible to be, available for this immediate eligibility rule. All right, third criteria, maintain their academic process at the new school. Guys, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know what that one really means. I guess if you're making B's, I know it's not that simple, but I don't get that rule. I don't get the third criteria, to be 100% honest with you. I'm one of those that believes it. If I don't know something, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't know it. That's the way I do this business. That's the way I do this gas baggery and this opinion given. If you hear an opinion from me, just that it is well-sourced. It's well-resourced, if anything, or researched, if anything. I've put some time in it. I've put some effort into it. I'm going to tell you right now, as much effort and time as I put in on this transfer rule, I still don't know what this third one means. Maintain their academic progress at their new school. Don't really understand that one. Fourth and final criteria to meet this immediate eligibility rule, leave under no disciplinary suspension. That one makes sense, right? You don't want to, similar to the second rule here, you can't be academically ineligible and, under disciplinary suspensions and think you have the right to go somewhere else and play immediately. Now, that doesn't mean guys can't transfer still, but that means they're going to have to sit out a year if they don't meet these four criteria. Everybody else gets immediate eligibility. And here's my initial thought, seeing as I cover the Georgia Bulldogs over there on the Bulldog Maven, who sponsors tonight's broadcast. We appreciate those guys. It's like me give my own self a pat on the back. We appreciate myself for sponsoring tonight's broadcast. Back to what, immediately when I heard, back in Big Ten when they proposed it, knew it was going to trickle down the pipe, just like we saw with pay for play, right? California made it legal. California said, we're cool. Well, what happened? Florida that same night. The California governor, I forgot his name, Gavin something. Gavin, I don't know Gavin's last name. Gavin was on the shop. Shout out to the king. LeBron James was on the shop, signed that little fancy paper that probably wasn't real and probably was recorded several months back, but nonetheless passed into the act or passed in to, I don't know laws, passed the law or put the bill into motion to get pay for play enacted that same evening, Florida. That next morning, New Jersey, so on and so forth. States all across the country started legalizing it. Next thing you know, NCAA comes out and says, by 2021, everybody's going to be able to do this. Everyone's going to be able to, get pay for play, not pay for play. Pay for play is the wrong term. It's, be able to capitalize on your own likeness. Like everybody else, if Todd Gurley goes and signs 3,000 autographs at a local, stop and shop in Athens, and the guy that runs the stop and shop wants to pay him $400, he's not going to have to sit out 3 games anymore for that, because he's going to be rightfully paid for his services, as he should have been a long time ago. But, that's a whole nother discussion for a whole nother day. But immediately when I thought of this, I thought about what a recruiting advantage it might be to a guy like Kirby Smart, who loads his recruiting classes up. He takes 2 backs single year, has taken multiple quarterbacks, has 7 quarterbacks in that quarterback room, I believe 4 or 5 of which are on roster right now. Okay, so he can tell all these guys, come on in, fight for your right to get playing time. And if you don't, guess what? You can go right down the road to Ohio State and you can play for free, or you can play immediately. You can play immediate eligibility. But first, give me the shot to play for the G. Give me a shot to let you play under this brand that we've created here at the University of Georgia. That's going to be the pitch moving forward for Kirby Smart, I would imagine, right? I have now the ability to promise you out on a job that you think you're going to win as the 5-star incumbent. Well, if you don't win it, you can go. You can go, and we'll sign that letter of release. We'll let you out. We'll let you go play wherever you want, as long as it's not Florida, hopefully. I would imagine that's the conversation that he's going to end up having with these kids. How they attack pay for play, I don't know. I've had Blaine Gilmer, our lead recruiting analyst. He's going to start, I believe, asking these kids in the 2021 and 2022 class, especially that 2022 class, how are these coaches approaching this new pay for player, this new capitalization on the likeness of image? How are they going about telling these kids that this is the platform we're going to do? This is the branding that we're going to use to make you the national brand and the brand that you want to be, right? Some of these kids nowadays, they come in, and I don't know if it's, I'm not one to sit here and blame social media, but here guys, they have brands, okay? Carson Beck sits on Instagram Live almost daily and watches that number go up, watches all those people that come to see him and ask him questions all over his Instagram feed. Darnell Washington, same way. Zach Evans, same way. The list goes on. All these kids are doing it. Even the quote unquote introverts are establishing their brand earlier and earlier. They are finding their passionate fan base, their passionate following earlier and earlier. So how do these guys like Kirby Smart, this is a new, tool in their tool belt, if you will, but everyone else has the same tool. How are these coaches going about making this rule and using it to their advantage, not to their disadvantage? And this rule right here, this new transfer rule, that is how Kirby Smart's going to use it. He's going to tell these 5 stars, look, Jalen Carter, Trayvon Walker's on our roster. He's a beast. He's a dog, just like you, okay? If you can't beat him out, if you are not satisfied, I hope you stick around for year 2 because you might get some, because he might be headed off to the league in a couple of months. I hope you stick around for year 3. If you don't, all fine and dandy. Go on down the road. We'll see you, whenever we see you. If it happens to be in a playoff, if it happens to be in an SEC crossover game, that is what it is. But I think that's how he uses it, because all these guys, they're getting backed up at this point, just like they're at Alabama. Transfers happen, in from that 2012 to 2017 rank, basically before Kirby got his full recruiting staff. Alabama was the one doing what Georgia's doing now, where they're fighting year in and year out for that number 1 spot. No coincidence, Kirby Smart was on that. He's at Georgia fighting for that number 1 spot. What happens? You're going to backlog those 5 stars. Guys, go look at the rosters in the 24/7s or the rivals or the SI All-Americans that are on the wide receivers group, the group that everyone wants to crap on prior to this 2020 signing class, and George Pickens and Don Blaylock and those 2 guys and the young guys. Go look at the 4 and 5 stars on that roster at the wide receiver position that so many people said can't separate. Well, guess what? Now those guys can separate themselves from the program, and they can head on down the road with no penalty, assuming that, again, they meet the criteria. Again, we've had some people come in and out of the broadcast as per usual. The podcast, it's available. Just search SEC Nightly wherever you catch your podcasts out, and you'll find us there. So that's kind of my spiel on this new transfer rule. Look, you should have known this was coming nationwide the moment the Big Ten stepped in and said, hey, just think about this. 3 weeks ago, the Big Ten said, hey, guys, just think about this rule and maybe coming down the pipe. And here it is right here, just a couple of weeks later. Getting some information that I've got some bad internet connection. I apologize for that. Travis, I'm trying to show your comment, which tells me I have bad internet connection. Travis, I apologize for the bad internet connection. I hope it's cleaning up just a little bit. But to this game in 2021. But before we do that, take a quick break. If you haven't already, give us some thumbs up. I see a lot of people in this broadcast. You're not supporting the show. I see you. I know you're doing it. Show us some support. Show us some love. With that, we'll move right on into our next topic as promised. UGA, Clemson, 2021. The 2 schools add again their 6th game that they're going to play in 12 seasons beginning next fall. And to spare you the bad radio segment filled with numbers and dates and when these schools are going to play, just understand this. It's 2 neutral site games first, one in Charlotte, one in Atlanta, and then they'll play 2 home and homes. Okay, that simple. A series of home and homes and a series of neutral site games. Simple. 6 games, 12 years, 2 of the best programs in the country going to be battling it out, and it's going to be intriguing. Now, Georgia dominates this series, right? I think I saw someone on one of my comments on Facebook today put in there, I think it's like 45-18 in Georgia's favor. These 2 schools used to play a lot through the 80s and 90s, not so much in recent memory. I know they've had a couple of bouts back in the Nick Chubb days and whatnot, but haven't played in quite a while, but they're going to get very, very familiar with each other from the years 2021 on through 2033. Good Lord, man. We're going to be so old by then, guys. Hope you all make it and hope you're all safe by 2023, as myself. All right. So, on to this Georgia and Clemson game, or back to it, rather. First off, I think it's absolutely fantastic for groups of fans, right? Both fans of these programs get to see a much better football game than what was going to be on the roster or on the schedule, right? Far better than a San Jose, State football game, but even better for the program of San Jose State. I mean, great for the Georgia fans, great for the Clemson fans, but how about San Jose State getting a $1.8 million check from the University of Georgia to not have to take that ass whooping that they were probably going to get? Not probably, that they were definitely going to get next fall in 2021. Instead, they saved the flight, they saved the hotels, they saved the trip out here, they saved the butt whooping, they go home, and guess what? They still get to keep their almost $2 million check. I call that a come up, right? That's hustling. That's right. They're getting you money. They'll probably make a new indoor facility off of that, or, at least returf something out there at the facility. All right. Secondly, that was my first note. Great for the fans, even better for San Jose State. Secondly, I think it's going to be fantastic for at least half a decade, to not have to listen, or at least a full decade almost, to not have to listen to Dabo Swinney talk about how other people are talking about how they don't play nobody. At least for 6 of the 12 seasons from 2021 to 2033, we won't have to listen to Dabo Swinney talk about his out-of-conference schedule. Because guess what? One of the 4 games are going to be against the Dogs. So that's good. We won't have to listen to ESPN complain about Dabo Swinney complaining about ESPN complaining. So we get to save that, clickbait story about Dabo Swinney said what? Dabo Swinney lost to South Carolina. They drop us completely out of the rankings? Well, we don't have to listen to it. So that's good. That's the second most important thing, other than San Jose State saving a butt whooping and still getting almost $2 million. Thirdly, and lastly, look, hey, we're waiting on you, Alabama. We're waiting on you, Florida. We're waiting on you, Tennessee. We're waiting on you, A&M. Y'all all think you're big and bad, and you want to compete in the SEC, and you think you're national programs, you think you're national brands. Go out and schedule some big-time games, okay? And I'm not talking about USC in 2020, Alabama. I'm not talking about Miami in 2021, Alabama. I'm talking about the Ohio States, the Oklahomas, the Clemsons. That's who I'm talking about. Let's go. Pony up, get out there, play the national brands, play the big dogs, play the perennial top 5 programs, and then we'll talk about your out-of-conference schedule, and then we will address those great games, okay? Again, the Dukes, the USCs, the Virginias, for that matter, for Georgia this fall, I'm not interested in those. Those might as well be another game scheduled against somebody else, okay? Save it for a home game. Play Murray State. Bring those guys out. Pack the stands with about 65,000 that'll lead midway through the second quarter. Do that kind of stuff. I would prefer that than to make people drive to Atlanta to play in that Chick-fil-A kickoff bowl, to watch Georgia inevitably Virginia by the same score margin that they're probably going to beat whoever else is on their out-of-conference schedule. It won't be that bad, right? It won't be 52-7 or 54-7, but it's not going to be a tight game. It's not going to be what Clemson and Georgia is going to be in 2021. There is September 4th or September 2nd, whenever they nail down and finalize that date. But that's my last thing, man. We're waiting on you, Alabama. We're waiting on you, Florida especially. I don't know what's going on with that out-of-conference schedule, but and again, I'm not on the beat. My boy Zach filled me in a little bit more, but I don't hear breaking news about this, right? For coming out of Gainesville. I don't hear news like this coming out of Tuscaloosa. And again, not thoroughly impressed with what Miami's going to be putting on the field, or USC is going to be putting on the field over the next couple of years. And I know you schedule these things far in advance, and I know that by 2033, Dabo Swinney's probably already going to be building his second home in Tuscaloosa. So we think, because he's going to go take his alma mater job. Sidebar, and I know I get bad on this, but what is this with everybody thinking people wants to come home? What makes you think Dabo Swinney, people who are making this hot take of Dabo Swinney's the incumbent, or the guy to take after Nick Saban when he inevitably retires there in Tuscaloosa? And again, it may happen, but I don't understand what this natural tendency, because LeBron wanted to go home or went back home at one time. Name me another athlete that's done it. Kevin Durant's not playing in Washington. Okay. Kirby Smart, alma mater, but it's also the first big-time program that offered him a head coaching job out of Alabama. Had that been Florida or South Carolina, are we sitting here saying that he wouldn't take that job too? That he only took Georgia and was only waiting on Georgia? Maybe he was. Maybe some people are cut like that. But what I'm also telling you is maybe Dabo Swinney's not cut like that. Maybe he doesn't want to return to Tuscaloosa. Maybe he likes what's happening out there in Clemson. Maybe he wants to retire there. You just never know. But to sit there and say somebody wants to go home is a little bit silly to me. But that's what I'm waiting on. I'm waiting on these bigger programs to continue to schedule these types of football games like Georgia and like Clemson, for that matter, finally doing this type of stuff. It's something they hadn't done in the last couple of years. Glad to see it happening, and glad to see it happening between two top 5 schools that we're not going to have to wait around to see. We're going to have to wait 500 days or so before September 4th of 2021 rolls around, but we're not having to wait until 2030 like some of those other matchups that Georgia's got on the roster. So they eat the $2 million, stroke the check to San Jose State and say, come on, Tigers, bring it on down. Or, we'll come up there and then you bring it on down to Atlanta. But I really do wonder what guys like spinning it back to Kirby. I wonder what their game plan is for those 5 stars. Look, he's running out of the Murray States, the Arkansas States, football games like that. Granted, he'll always have Georgia Tech, but Georgia Tech, they're not always going to be 52-7 bad or 52-14 bad, whatever it was this year. Jeff Collins, say what you want about the goofy shoes and standing on his tiptoes and recruiting prospect photos. That dude is recruiting. He's recruiting in Atlanta. They're going to go top 5 in the 2021 class. They might have snuck in and finished in the top 25 there in the 2020 class as well. So he's doing something. He's going to turn around slowly but surely one of the biggest and hardest rebuilds, in my personal opinion, that you'll probably ever see at the Division I program. Not too many people are running the triple option anymore, folks. Not at the big-time Power 5 level. Georgia Tech was the last one to do it. This rebuild is going to take a while. Be patient there in Atlanta. Probably no Tech fans listening to tonight's broadcast, but if you are, I don't know how you found us here at SEC Nightly, but we appreciate you for being here. But anyways, I wonder what it's going to do to Kirby's. We talk about him playing all these young 5 stars and getting them into those football games and playing, I think the famous number he keeps throwing out and every Georgia fan keeps throwing out is the 45 guys playing 40 snaps on defense, all that great stuff. Well, a lot of that has to do with being up 5 scores on Arkansas State in the first half. Okay, you can roll true freshmen out there and play them with those new four games they're allotted and still maintain their freshman red shirt. You can do that kind of stuff. That's why you continue to schedule those guys other than trying to make it into the playoffs with a tougher, out of conference schedule. That's the reason they're doing it moving forward. So there is no debate. When you lose South Carolina's football game because you had a clunker at home and you turned it over 4 times, hopefully you can fall back on an out of conference win like Clemson or like Notre Dame. They tried to do that. They were on the borderline of doing that last year. That Notre Dame game almost got Georgia slid into the 4th spot despite losing that South Carolina game and despite getting blown out in the SEC championship game. Had Baylor, I truly believe this, and if you don't believe me, look at Georgia being ranked 5th after that 37-10 loss in the SEC championship game. I truly believe that had Baylor beaten Oklahoma, or maybe Oklahoma not beating them as badly, or beating them twice, or whatever the rule is there, I think Georgia might have snuck back into the playoff despite having 2 losses, one of which being the at-home loss to South Carolina, and all because they could sit there and say they beat a Notre Dame team that beat Virginia by 40 or whatever it was, and then Virginia plays Florida relatively tight in the Orange Bowl, at least for the first half. So all those out-of-conference games are going to defend you from a clunker at home midway through the season, and that's why they're doing it. But it's also going to limit your ability to play young guys in those guaranteed blowouts, to get those guys reps and film and the ability to at least show them that they're soon to have playing time in the near future with guys leaving. So, interesting. But again, we're waiting on some other big programs to start doing this and doing it on a more consistent basis. All right, on to our we've got 2 topics left, but we're really going to call it one. We're kind of going to squeeze them into one. 2 coaching changes. Well, one of them was already a coaching change, but the first one, Charlie Strong, defensive analyst. We talked about this earlier, at the very beginning of the show. there on that staff, and you know he's going to be able to help out in terms of recruiting in the Florida area as well, which is so important, especially in the SEC. It's important everywhere to try to go into the Sunshine State and pull out some of that top talent and some of that top speed, but it's really, really crucial for SEC programs that are in there fighting over that battleground state constantly. And, you know, he's going to be able to help out with that. And, you know, he's probably just the defense coordinator in waiting, I would imagine, for the inevitable moment when Saban loses yet another offensive assistant or defensive assistant in Pete Golding, who is just 36 years young. You don't think he might be up for a head coaching job soon? You don't think he might be up for, you know, some type of opportunity pretty soon? Okay. Pete Golding, 36 years old. This would be his third season as a defense coordinator there at Alabama. This is what Nick Saban does. This is why he has maintained his dominance for decades there at Alabama. It's recruiting, but it's also the ability to stack and stash analysts, and then turn them into assistants. Okay. He did this with Sarkisian, and now he's doing it with excuse me, man, I'm running out of brain strength here tonight. Charlie Strong, he's doing it right here. He's just stashing a guy in waiting, a defensive coordinator in waiting. And when it inevitably happens, when he inevitably loses his defensive coordinator to another head coaching job, we'll just slide Charlie Strong right in there and make him our defensive coordinator. And again, I don't think there's anybody better in college football at this than Nick Saban. And I think part of that, a lot of that probably has to do with funding there in Alabama. They are solely committed to giving Nick Saban whatever it is he wants. So if it is, okay, look, sorry, breaking news, but it's NBA related. You guys don't care. Brett Beeline out in Cleveland. I think Brett Beeline? Brett Beeline, I think Brett Bielema was the coach at Wisconsin and then Arkansas. Beeline, the former college coach that's now at Cleveland with the Cavaliers, out, fired. See you. Anyways, back to Saban. Great at stashing analysts, quote unquote analysts, and turning them into assistants very, very shortly after, you know, kind of doing the thought process and, you know, kind of trying to imagine what's going to happen in the future and getting people in to make sure when that loss does occur, it's not as big of a blow to that program. Last topic of the night, my boy, the pit boss, Sam Pittman, is making moves out there in Arkansas in a matter of 2 months. Let's run through what Sam Pittman has been able to do since he took the job. I believe December 14th, a week after the SEC championship game, I believe they announced that Pittman would be taking the job there at Arkansas. 48 hours later, Kirby Smart brought in Matt Luke. Whole nother story. But anyways, in a matter of just under 2 months or just over 2 months, this is what he's done. He's convinced the best player on their football team to come back for his senior year at Arkansas, of all places. And senior running back Rakeem Boyd going to return, I think, over 1,500 total yards last year, maybe over 1,200 total yards. Best player on the team going to return. Sealed, check. Good move. All right. Brought in a quarterback. Now, say what you want about Felipe Franks, better than whatever they had on the roster, and is a starting caliber SEC quarterback. I know he's not a Heisman winner, despite what some Florida fans were telling you last offseason. Not that. I know he's a turnover machine, but what he is he's 6'6". He's 240 some odd pounds, 250 pounds, and he can throw it, right? We all know that. Now, where it's going, we don't really know that, but we know he can throw it. We know he's an SEC caliber quarterback, at least going to be in the, you know, middle to top half of quarterback talents in the SEC next year on that offense in Arkansas. So boom, check number 2. And lastly, news today, flipped a 4-star, not flipped a 4-star, flipped a couple on National Signing Day, but stole a 4-star, former 4-star off that Clemson roster. A senior transfer going to now come over and play there in Arkansas. And you're going to have to forgive me. Don't know his name, but no, he played 29 games at Clemson on that defensive line over the last 3 years. So someone that's played not a lot, right? I mean, they've played, let's on average 14 games. Let's call it 15 because they're constantly in the playoffs, and it's a much easier number to work with. Over the 45 games in the last year, he's only played 2/3 of them, right? He's only played 29 of the 45. So this isn't a guy who's getting a lot of playing time, hence the reason he wants to grad transfer. But he did get a graduate's degree in 3 years, so you know he's at least somewhat due diligent in terms of wanting to get out of there. And it's probably planned. Not like Clemson wasn't expecting this, I would imagine. If we talk to my boy Zach Lentz over there with the SI.com's Clemson page, I would imagine he would tell you that this was foreseen, that Dabo Swinney knew this was coming. But what he didn't know is that he was going to go to Arkansas, of all places. That's not really where these guys end up. These guys typically end up in a much bigger and more prestigious football program than Arkansas. But again, this is the influence of Sam Pittman. This is the relationship building ability of Sam Pittman. So the Pit Boss doing some really good things up there at Arkansas, and hats off to him. That's good news for him. And that SEC, I think it's good for those guys to be stronger in that conference, just like it's good for Kentucky to be much stronger in the SEC East. It makes everybody that much better. That is going to be our show for tonight. We will send you out the way we brought you in, and that's with the best intro music and outro music in the game, as we always tell you here on SEC Nightly. If you guys haven't figured out by now, we do this. Oh, that's a little loud. We do this Monday through Friday, typically starting at 9 o'clock, except on Tuesdays, which occasionally I've got to get my hoop on, okay? Got to get your cardio. Great way of getting cardio, get your hoop on. Can't play hoops? Go play badminton. Do something, okay? Do something, get your heart rate up. It's good for you, okay? That's what I'm doing on Tuesday night, so it might be a little later as it was tonight, but typically we like to roll this thing off at 9 o'clock. Right around 30-minute shows. We typically go just over a little bit, and Fridays we might open up to mailbag. So if you guys want to stay around and stick around and hang out Friday night, we'll probably open it up to some questions, and I'll answer whatever you got, whether you got a Georgia recruiting question, whether you got a spring practice question, whether you got a question about what I think about something on one of your teams. Whatever it is, don't care. Bring it to me. We'll address it here on SEC Nightly. In and out of the podcast or in and out of the broadcast. If you missed any part of tonight's show, you know where to check us out. Just search SEC Nightly on wherever, however you find your podcast. And while you're there, give us a 5-star rating and review. We would greatly appreciate that. And on your way out tonight, before we say bye, social media platform you have found us, show us your support there as well. We appreciate you guys for joining. We appreciate you guys for listening to me talk to the wall for the last, 33 and a half minutes. And we will see you tomorrow. As always, this has been SEC Nightly, and I've been your humble host, Brooks Austin. We'll see you next time.